Let's blind two bourbons that are a lot more similar to each other than you might think. The Old Rip Van Winkle 10-year and the Weller Antique 107 single barrel. I thought this would be a fun blind because of the similarities between these two bottles. They're both coming from Buffalo Trace. They're both coming from the Wheated Mash Bill 3. They're both 107 proof, and they're also both non-chill filtered. As for the differences between these two bottles, the first one is going to be the age statement. The Old Rip is obviously a 10-year age statement, whereas this Weller Antique 107 single barrel, this is actually a 7.5-year age statement, which I inquired from Sazerac. And then the second big difference is going to be that the Old Rip Van Winkle is actually a batch product, and we obviously know this Weller here is a single barrel. For me, the most important difference or biggest difference between these two bottles is going to be that batch versus single barrel. For the batch product here, we have the Old Rip Van Winkle. We can only assume this is a batch of the best barrels from the entire Mash Bill 3 that were being aged at a minimum of 10 years. When you're batching the product here, you have more autonomy to fit that specific prestigious flavor profile of Old Rip Van Winkle. And then for this Weller here, it's a single barrel. We know single barrels can either be very good, average, or not so great. So it's really more of a roll of the dice. Let's see how these do in the blind. For the nose, I did prefer the one on my left more. It seemed more balanced between the vanilla, caramel. It had a very prominent cherry note that I really liked, as well as that oak and a little bit of tannins on it. The one on my right, it honestly seemed a little bit more off profile from the Old Rips as well as Wellers that I've tried in the past. It has more of a berry note on it. Not that I don't like it, but it's definitely a little different. For the palate and finish, opposite of the nose, I like the one on my right more. The one on my right, it had nice sweetness of vanilla and caramel. It also still had that lovely berry note that I was getting on the nose. And then the palate and finish had some awesome oak and oak tannins on it. I thought this was very complex, refined, and well-rounded compared to the one on my left. The one thing I really liked on the one on my left, which came from the nose as well, was that prominent cherry note that was fantastic. But beyond that, I thought from palate to finish, it just drank a little bit hot for me, and that's why I like the one on the right more. And the winner coming out of the right Glen is the Old Rip Van Winkle. I guess I'm not too surprised by that. I will say though, on the nose, I thought this Weller Antique 107 was fantastic, and that just goes to show you how great single barrels can be. But the reason I'm not too surprised is mostly because of the MSRP and secondary difference between these two. To no surprise, the Old Rip Van Winkle won, but if I'm paying for these bottles or paying for a pour, I'll gladly take this Weller Antique 107 single barrel every day.